just going to tell you some of the basics on it, so you can start your own blacksmith shop on your homestead, or for a hobby, or just whatever reasons you want. I'm just going to show you some of the basics. Now, the first thing you will need for your blacksmith shop is a forge. Now, the forge is what's used to heat up the metal. Now, in my case, I have a masonry forge, and when I say masonry, that means it's made out of brick. Some of them in the older days were made out of stone, in the more rural areas, but for the most part, they were brick. But the easiest ones to make are out of steel. Now, with steel fire pots and masonry fire pots, there's still one thing in common, and that's the fire pot. Now, the fire pot is a part of the forge that is used to heat the metal. Now, it's usually made out of steel. Some of them, the older ones, are made out of fire brick. But for the most part these days, they're made out of steel. Now, you can buy them online out of cast steel. They're good fire pots. But those are around $350 or more. So you want to go with one you can make. And you can make it out of plate steel. Now, when you make one, I wouldn't go any smaller in thickness than a 1/2 inch. Personally, I like 3/4 inch. And the size you want for your fire pot will be a rectangle. You will want a 10-inch by 12-inch. Now, the reason for that is because when you go to heat your metal and you lay your metal in across this way, then, let's see, I want to move the camera so you can see probably a little bit better. There we go. Because if you have 2 more inches, have a square one, 12-inch by 12-inch, you've got all this coal over here burning that's just being wasted. So, in my personal opinion, a 12-inch by 10-inch will do just about anything you want. Some people make or even buy a 12-inch by 14-inch. Personally, I think that's overkill. Because what you're going to do is you're going to heat 10 to 8 inches of your metal. And unless you have a power hammer, you're not going to work much more than that 8 or 10 inches. Now, a fire pot is the more used fire pot, I should say. There's all kinds of different shapes. There's some round ones like a bowl shape, but for ones for ease of making, it's almost like a pyramid. Excuse my crummy drawing. I'm not the best at drawing. But that's how a fire pot is basically shaped. You have your sides, your bottom. And at the bottom, you'll have your air, well, this will be your ash dump right here, center pipe. Then you'll have a flap of steel right here on the hinge. And you'll have a piece of metal for a handle going out with a counterweight. And that counterweight can just be a piece of pipe steel filled with sand to give it some extra weight. And you'll have your hinge on this side. And the gravity pull from this will keep this flap right here closed. Now, also what you'll want is an air intake. At least that's what I call it. And this is another piece of pipe steel. You'll want to go with about 3-inch round. You don't want to go any smaller than 3-inch pipe, and always stick with round because all of the blowers, hand blowers, have this round hole in them for the air pipe to go into, for it to go into. And then this part here, your ash dump, you can go 3.5 to 4 inches. I think mine is about a 4-inch. So, and then if you want to get fancy with it, you can put in what's called a clinker breaker. Now, a clinker breaker will basically go, what it is a triangle of metal. I'm going to draw a little bit bigger diagram. Okay, and here's there's your air rash dump right there, and then your air intake. Now, a clinker breaker is going to have a handle that will come out the side, whichever side that you're will be working from on your forge. It's going to come through, and then it's going to be about like a triangle. It'll be a triangle shape of metal that will go around here and then have a hinge pin on the side. Now, what a clinker breaker does, it breaks up the clinkers in the bottom of the fire pot. Now, if you don't want to know what a clinker is the impurities that are in your coal, metal deposits, that sort of thing. Don't ask me the science behind it. I just know the basics of the science part. I know how to do it, but I don't know the science behind it. So what this will do is a clinker will form over the air hole, air intake of your fire pot. So if you have a layer of clinkers over your air intake, then your air is just going to go right back down and just go back where it came from. It's just going to circle all in here and not going to get up. Just very little will get into your actual fire pot. So with a clinker breaker, what you can do is when they form down the bottom, you can just rotate this little handle, rotate this triangle piece that is about the same size as your actual fire pot. So this is the bottom of your fire pot. Here's the hole for the clinker breaker, or say this is the hole here. Then this is your clinker breaker. You want about 3/4 of an inch on all sides of the clinker breaker, no more and no less. Because if you go any less, then that will make the floor of your fire pot a little weak, weaken it. So, now we're going to go to making a fire pot. Now, in science, you may think, oh, well, that would be fairly simple to build a fire pot. Well, there's a lot of math if you don't have a jig or the measurements to making a fire pot. It took me some figuring out, and I'm going to show you the exact measurements for making a 10 by 12 fire pot. One thing I forgot to mention about fire pots is the depth. You want your depth no more than 4 inches. Personally, I like 3 3/4 inches. It seems to work the best. You go any deeper than that, the heat isn't going to rise up into your to the top of the fire pot. So I'm going to get my measurements here. I'm going to write them down here on the chalkboard. All right, for your 12-inch size, you want to, like I said, I'm not the best at drawing on this chalkboard. You want your top measurement to be 12 inches, of course. The bottom, you want to be 3 inches. And then, what you're going to do is instead of measuring 3 inches from here to here to get your depth, you're going to measure from your corners. So, from this point to this point is 6 3/4 inches. So that gives you your two 12-inch sides. Now for your 10-inch side, it's going to be a little bit more elongated. Top, of course, is 10 inches. Bottom is 3.5 inches. And then, from this point here, your two sides again, you're going to measure from that, is 7 inches. And that'll give you your basic 10 by 12 fire pot size. And it will, and with the lengths, here and here, here and here, once you put it together, it's going to give you a depth of 3 3/4 inches. give or take an eighth. So it'll be close enough. Blacksmithing isn't a science per se. Well, in a way it is, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand it. If I can understand it, anybody can. So that's the basics of a fire pot. Now your actual forge top, you're going to basically build a steel table when you build a steel forge. Now the way you're going to do this, you're just going to weld some legs, some pipe legs. I like 2-inch by 2-inch pipe. And for a height, from the bottom of the floor to the top of the or the tabletop of the forge, I like to be about 32 inches. It seems to work great. Now, people who are taller than me, I'm about 5'11". People taller than me, they may want it, a little bit higher. But an average forge height is about 32 inches. So that's basically forge and fire pot design. Now what I want to do now is I want to take you over and show you an actual fire pot that I made recently for a new steel forge. Whoops, didn't mean to hit the, I know I'm probably making y'all dizzy, but I don't have a computer to edit video. Now, let me get the actual fire pot. Alright. I'm going to try not to get my fingers. Alright, so there's the fire pot itself. Now you'll notice that here on the top we have a ledge, something I forgot to mention. You're going to want to take a piece of about 2-inch flat steel, at least 1/4 inch thick, and weld this ledge across the top of the fire pot. And what that'll do is once you insert it on your table, this ledge will get to sit on it to keep it just from falling through. Now here you can see the clinker breaker. It's just a triangle piece, and then here's the handle out here. Turn it. That'll help the clinkers and also any ash sift right through it. Now, and you'll notice too, this fire pot on the ash dump doesn't have the counterweight. That's because this was a heavy enough piece of metal to hold this flat closed. And you'll also notice that the handle for the clinker breaker and also for the ash dump is on the same side. Because that's the side that you want to know you're going to be working on or standing by when you're working at the forge. That way you're not having to walk around to the other side of the forge to run the clinker breaker or go to the other side to do the ash dump. Do it on the same side that you're working from. This side you have the air pipe against 3-inch pipe. And also, you may notice on this forge, it doesn't have this fire pot, so it's kind of cumbersome to fool with. Alright, it doesn't necessarily have a floor, it has just a clinker breaker. Now if you decide, now clinker breaker is kind of complicated in a way, it'll make you scratch your head at times when you install it, but what you can do if you decide to just not go with fire pot or a clinker breaker isn't necessary. It's not absolute, you have to have this. You can just take a piece of 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch rebar and weld it here in the center across at the bottom. Inside, preferably right on the bottom of the fire pot or right inside the ash dump or air intake. And what that'll do is that'll keep your coal from just falling right down that 4-inch hole. Because you want your coal to be about grape or pea size. So that's forges and fire pots for you. I hope I was some help if you're wanting to learn blacksmithing. And then the other basic tools, for blacksmithing are, of course, the vise, the leg vise, and then your anvil. Of course, we can cover that at another time. And then a blower of some kind, of air intake. You can use that's a large hand blower right there. Then they have smaller ones like that one sitting over there. Or you can even use electric blowers. And then, of course, one of the main things with the forge you're going to want, if it's not sitting outside, is some way to vent all the air. Whether it's a side draft forge hood like that, or an overhead, or just an exhaust fan, a whole building fan inside your shop. You're going to want some way to get rid of all that smoke. So thanks for watching, and hope I was some help to you.